to our very last episode of With Sonar for 2022. It's going to be a great episode. We've got a fantastic guest lined up for us today who will be joining us later. But Tanner, thanks so much for joining us here. It's the last one.
Yeah, it's the end of the road for the year, man. 2022 has been absolutely wild. Thanks for inviting me on the show, man. Last few months, it's been a lot of fun. So.
It has been good. We've enjoyed having you. I say we. I speak for Tony and I, even though he's not here right now. But it's been great to have you. No, yeah, it's been definitely a wild 2022. And what we're going to do today in today's show is we're going to look at what's happened this year. Some of the most, I'd say, exciting, depends on who you are, but influential events or of where we started and where we've come. When I look back at some of the data sets that we've looked at, I'm like, wait, that happened this year? Like it's one of those moments. Even at F3, when we had that in November, I mean, we had Dave Kiesling, who's going to be joining us later today. He's going to be returning, so he was on that show, and that feels like almost like a century ago. You know, it's really incredible. But what's if you had to pick a highlight, maybe from a customer side, like what would you say is, you know, hey, when I look back on this year, like, hey, I'm excited we were able to do this with a customer. Maybe this is like a feedback you got from a customer. Like, is there any sort of highlight that floats in there?
The highlight for us this year was definitely our track spot rates. I think everybody's been waiting for that for a very long time, a few years, and we finally have it inside Sonar. Mm-hmm. It's been a staple. It's become the most used tool within the Sonar platform today, and it's a pretty great tool.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Well, we're definitely got to look at everything that's going to happen today. And one thing I think we're going to throw on the screen here real quick before we bring Dave on is going to be our volume charts. We've looked at volume quite a bit. Over this whole year, and it is right there for us. So this is a great chart. This chart really breaks down, I think, the health of the U.S. freight market. I mean, this is it. This is the physical goods economy for the U.S. is right there. Everything that you have in your home is right there on that chart. At some point in time, it was represented there. I mean, look at that. When we started the year off, that dark blue line is this year's 2022. We started the year off, Tanner, at the highest point we've ever been in January and February. We've never seen January and February is that high before, ever, is how we started 2022. Yeah. And then look at where we've gone. We're nearly at 2019 levels.
Yeah, and if you actually, it looks like you only went to 19, but if you actually overlay 2018 on there, we're almost at a 5-year low when it comes to overall truckload demand in the marketplace. Yes. I mean, 5 years, that's a long time. This year has dramatically decreased, and it's been a whirlwind. Yeah.
I think we also may be overcorrecting a little bit too, I wonder, and I don't know for certain, but I wonder if we're overcorrecting a little bit due to, you know, just the insane surge that we had during 2020 and 2021. But yeah, I mean, you really saw that big dip that happened there, I think in March, April, May. It looks like it began in February, but really March, April, May. And then it kind of just settled for a while. And I was like, all right, I might just be kind of hanging out for a while. And then post-July, we started to slowly step down a little bit. And then after September, it kind of started to accelerate again. So
yeah, I mean, each like two sections, like you said. I think that April, May had kind of been caused by some of those slowdowns that was coming into the ports, the things that were being ordered. Henry's been talking about that almost the entire year. Then you get the Fed starting to raise rates. You see the economy starting to slow down the second half of the year. So yeah, it's been wild.
Very good. Well, let's go ahead. Let's bring on Dave here. I'm sure Dave's got a lot to say. He's got a lot of great insights into the market. So we're going to bring on Dave Kiesling. He's the VP of Transportation Management over at Kenco Group. Dave, great to have you here. And thanks again for joining us again. I know last time we were in person at F3 here in Chattanooga, and this time we've got you virtually, and we're going to have you in person here in the studio. But great to have you back, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate being on. Sorry I couldn't join you in studio this week. I'm in Ohio, and I'm getting ready for some football this weekend.
Hey, as you should. That's exciting. There's been a lot that's happened this year, Dave. From your perspective, where you guys sit, I know Kenco, you guys have a lot going on over there, very diverse in your offerings. You know, as you look back over 2022, were were there any surprises that happened kind of along the way, either for the positive or for the negative, or just a genuine surprise that the freight market took?
Yeah, I think, one of the surprises that we saw is that, and it really happened right after the hurricane kind of came through, right, is that, and you guys called it out, volumes began to really slow down. And, while customers in our consumer products and in some of our durable goods, have seen their business come down a little bit, overall, we're just shipping less product, right? And I think from that perspective, the economy is slowing. We're continuing to see wage rates, whether those are on the warehouse side of the business or paying our drivers, continue to be at all-time highs, and we don't see any real relief in sight for wages. But I think that, coupled with some slowdown in commercial construction and residential construction, and obviously where interest rates have gone, have just kind of put a little damper, right, if you will, or corrected kind of where were at the beginning of the year, which really surprised, I think, us as well, is that January, February, and March were three of the best months for our customers and for us as an organization as it relates to our revenue and our profitability.
Yeah, Dave, what is the story from Kenco's been, your customer standpoint? What are you kind of telling them throughout what's happened this year? And then also, what's the communication to them about maybe where we're headed into 2023?
Yep. So I think it depends on what vertical they're in. And, for us, and again, some of our competitors are the same, we really do focus on a few verticals, life sciences being one of them. Other verticals would be consumer, what we call durable industrial goods, certainly, traditional retail. And then food and beverage. And, the good news about food and beverage is, people seem to be relatively happy. And so they're eating and they're drinking. And then certainly, during the holiday season, we see upticks in that side of the business. In life sciences, a lot of things coming in 2023 around regulation and care and control, and making sure that the trackability and lot trackability is where it's needed to ensure patient safety. So we know some things are coming down the pike that are going to affect capacity, because certain carriers just aren't going to be able to provide that level of traceability. And then, of course, in consumer and retail, it does ebb and flow, I think, more than anything. I think, using some of the data that is provided in Sonar, whether that's, inbound TEU volume and where it's going to, which ports in particular, we see the most volatility in that kind of retail consumer product space in the months to come in 2023.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Dave. And let's go ahead and throw it up when we can. I think we've got the inbound TEU volume index. We'll give us a second to pull that one up to see how that one has unfolded. But yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's that's the Freightos Baltic Index. So that's the price for a lot of those containers. So we saw the collapse in container prices from China to North America West Coast. That one, I think, really started to collapse there in early May, going from, I think that's about 15,000, 16,000 a container to now we're down about to 1,300 a container. So over a 90% drop. But yeah, there's and that right there is really I think the driver behind that drop is that inbound TEU volume booking index. So again, that's that volume there that's coming, that's beginning its journey to the U.S. So definitely suppressed there, probably heavily influenced by retail goods, CPG, definitely some automotive furniture as well. Big drop there, although it does look like we've at least found a short-term bottom in the drop.
Yeah, seems like a little bit of short term. A little bit of recovery, right? It's an index, so a couple of points isn't going to make a huge, big difference. But yeah, I think you've seen the slowdown in demand. Mm-hmm. Retailers aren't restocking that inventory from the holiday sales, as Dave mentioned, right? There's a warehouse effect to that. So all these things kind of combined is the reason back to that original chart of that demand drop.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I guess, Dave, when you guys, you're right. You all have access to this data as well. When you go to your customers, does this? I guess, how does this impact or influence the conversation with your customers as you plan for, that Q1 of 2023?
Yeah, I think, there are a couple things. And one of the key things is, when times are really good, our customers are looking for more capacity, more warehouse space, more, right? More capability. Right. And then, of course, when times of either inflation, recession, slowdown, cost, containment come to play, it's the exact opposite. Hey, how do we, shred a node in our distribution? How do we run less miles? How do we become more efficient with the capacity that we do have or that we've committed to operate with? So, for us, it's a different problem for our customers, but it's a great engagement because, they're asking for either, hey, help us expand or help us, control cost and contract. I think the other side is service. I think most of us saw, we talked about it, at F3, there was a degradation in service overall in the industry, whether that's parcel, LTL, truckload. On-time delivery rates really kind of bottomed out in the mid to low 80s. What we saw, with our customer base and with our carrier partners. So I think there's a renewed focus right now on ensuring that service gets back into those mid 90s or high 90s, depending on the mode of transportation that you're working with. Certainly fulfillment rates on available inventory, and making sure that, if there's 100 items that are on the order, that 100 items are getting picked, packed, shipped, and delivered. And then damage, right, is the last piece of that. And, the downstream effects that a defect like damage causes, it's just so much rework that our customers in particular are very interested in how we can help them control and mitigate damage that, impacts not only their bottom line, but really their customer service.
Now, Dave, it's a constant kind of tug of war with contracted rates versus spot rates, and put that in against service. We all kind of know what rates have done this year, but maybe it's kind of, what's your overall forecast, or what could you maybe pinpoint if you had a crystal ball in front of you? Where are rates going to head maybe into 2023?
Yeah, I want to hear the Dave crystal ball.
So if I get this right, you'll have me back on. If I get it wrong, I'm out, right?
Well, think of it both ways. If you get it right, we have you on as like the hero, but if you get it wrong, we have you back on anyways, but it's like, hey, we get to point towards your mistake.
Yeah. Not the GOAT that I'm looking for. I think my crystal ball is carrier costs are still going up. Right, driver wages are going up, insurance is going up, maintenance and fuel is going up, equipment costs for new is going up. I think you're going to see, and I know you guys track some of this stuff as well. There's probably going to be a glut of used equipment on the market here in the short term. So I think there are cost components that are going to keep rates elevated. You're not going to see the cliff that I think we've seen in prior markets, the bullwhip or the whiplash effect. But I think rates are going to go down in the short term because there is available drivers, right? The total number of CDL drivers in North America has not fluctuated very much in the last 3 to 5 years. And so whether they're driving a cement truck or a truck delivering lumber, or they're driving over the road, the number of CDL drivers in the U.S. has really been relatively flat. And those drivers want to work. And if those construction jobs and those maintenance jobs and those infrastructure jobs aren't there, they're going to get back in a truck and go over the road. And they're going to do it probably either in their own truck if fuel stays low or continues to fall, or they'll do it as a company driver. We know many owner-operators who parked their trucks at the beginning of this year when fuel went crazy. It really hurts them when fuel is high because they may either factor and give away more of their profit, right, to get cash today to pay for fuel. It helps actually, the larger carriers because they can put somebody in truck and they can pay them today's, wages. And they can absorb some of that fuel because they're buying at a national level. So that's a lot of background to say, I think rates are going to go down another 5 to 7%. Whether you use the track index and what the larger brokers are paying the carriers themselves, or you use your own index. We look at it by length of haul, and we look at really 8 major markets. So, Ontario, California, obviously Chattanooga, where we're at, Chicago, Atlanta, we call it Harrisburg, Allentown, PA. And, in those markets, we're seeing the average length of haul go down. And when the average length of haul goes down, it also helps the overall, I think, rate market compress a little bit. So 5 to 7%. I don't know where track is today, but is it the 208, something like that? Maybe two. I didn't look today. I guess I should have looked before I got on.
Tanner, you got us the number? Where's track at?
Yeah, we're actually at 218 today. We have gotten a little bit of bounce, and we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, so we're at 218 today, off a little bit of a bounce here. But kind of want to go back and maybe talk a little bit about fuel.
Yeah, let's bring up the. We can bring up the fuel chart here. So let's go ahead and throw this up on the screen. So yeah, I think this probably goes a little bit to what you were saying, Dave. Right, so this is the diesel truck stop actual price. We also track the wholesaler rack price, which we don't have on the screen in front of us, but that spread is pretty large. I think what you were hinting at, Dave, is a lot of those big carriers are able to buy closer to that wholesaler rack price, and then they get the difference here with those fuel surcharges. But yeah, this is that diesel truck stop price, probably where a lot of your small carriers are buying, or they're buying close to this. Maybe they have a fuel card, but they're probably buying pretty close to this. So it's come down a little. But yeah, I mean, you think about that. It started to ramp in early 2022 there, but right when March hit, I think that was when Russia-Ukraine really kicked off, if I remember correctly. We're still up at that level. So a little bit of relief, a little bit being the underlying word, maybe. With wholesale prices have come down more. If that, I think, maintains, we should see retail prices come down a little more, and that may give relief to those operating in the spot market a little bit more, and hopefully translate. And maybe that translates towards somewhat cheaper equipment costs for new orders, but that doesn't really impact the insurance cost, doesn't really impact wages. So we might get partial relief, I think, if fuel continues to come down in some of those costs, but there's other areas that aren't really influenced by fuel a whole lot, right, Tanner?
Yeah, not a lot that's going to make that change. And from what kind of the experts are saying, and people who track fuel data, Gas Buddy, some people I was reading on Twitter, is that there's not really anything that's going to slow down the decrease in fuel. Most people, what they're suggesting is that it's going to continue to fall, maybe even get below where we were at the beginning of this year. Back during really early pandemic, we were close to below $3 a mile. So if we can get back towards that, obviously that's a little bit of operational pressure coming off of those carriers. But yeah, the reason behind this fall is the reason that rates haven't really changed, right? We can pull up our chart next about the line hauls. We've said that they've kind of bounced up from a bottom. But if you have fuel fighting against those line hauls, nothing's really going to change.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and pull up those two, the truckload rates there. So we've got contract and spot. These are both line haul. And Dave, I think that's what you were pointing towards, the yellow line there, which is the track rate, sitting at 218. So a little bit of a bump the last couple of days there as we got around Christmas. It's, we basically cracked above the October high. We've cracked just above the October high on the track spot rates. That's that yellow line there. So a little bit of relief. Now with fuel prices coming down and those spot rates going up, there's a little bit of relief there. And then contract rates, again, line haul in blue. So that you're still getting your fuel surcharge on top of that. So still a bit of a spread. It's going to be, I think, you usually don't see those holiday peaks and valleys in the contract rates. They don't move that quickly, but obviously the spot rates there, you do see it. I guess, Dave, do you see, let's go back to the Dave crystal ball here for a minute. I guess, do you think that little bump that we've seen in those track spot rates there, do you think we're going to hold on to any of that in the near term, or you think that's going to fizzle out after New Year's and we start to kind of get into the lulls of January?
It fizzles out after New Year's for two reasons. One is where the holidays fall this year, right? So when holidays fall on the weekend, you've got folks that are taking Friday or Monday, and you're trying to find capacity on a Wednesday or Thursday that normally you may not necessarily need, and people sit at home, right? Some of those people don't drive their trucks for those 2 weekends. The other thing is we had a major weather event go through most of the U.S., right? And for some of our customers, specifically some of our life science customers, there was a push to make sure that we protected some things from freezing. So it wasn't necessarily that they needed temp control, but they needed something that in this 2 week period that they normally don't need. And so I think that while it's not directly in a dry van rate or a reefer rate number, right, it does impact the balance of where capacity sits. So we're expecting that, it to fall back and kind of continue that trajectory. When you think about, and we use ATRI, I mean, that's our kind of our Bible for marginal or variable cost of running a truck. People can argue whether it's $1.82 or $1.87 or $1.92, but it costs about $1.90 to run up the road nowadays, right? And then when you add the variability of fuel to that, you can see where 217 to 260, you get between current spot rates because capacity is a plenty, right? Tender accept rates, I think, maybe ticked up to 8 or 9% this past week or two, but they were hovering around 5%. I think there's enough capacity that January and February, barring any major weather events, we're going to see that spot rate continue to fall, and I think it'll pull contract rates down. I think most of the larger carriers have learned, I want a portion of my capacity to play in the spot market, but they're smart enough to know that if they put too much of their capacity in the spot market and the rates continue to fall, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of chasing the bottom.
Now, Dave, moving a little bit later in the year, what factors in the market could possibly cause a market shift finally? And second question, what time of the year next year do you think that could possibly occur?
All right. So if I get it right in the first quarter, now this will be held against me in the second or third quarter.
Right. That's what we're planning.
We've asked you, I think, some lose questions here, Dave. But don't worry, we won't hold you to it. All right.
Well, you know what? When we're in Cleveland together in the middle of the year, we can see how well we did. Right.
That's right. And we do a little recap. We'll have to have you on with Sonar at Future Supply Chain in Cleveland, and we'll do a recap.
Looking forward to showing off Northeast Ohio to folks, that's for sure. So, I think two things. One is it'll be interesting to see where interest rates go, because if interest rates fall and housing picks back up, again, drivers who right now aren't delivering shingles or drywall or sheetrock or lumber, they're going to go to work, and they're going to go to work, driving a truck somewhere, whether that's regional, national, on the spot basis, whatever. So I think if interest rates either level off or fall, and that picks back up, that can be something that will cause rates to go back up because you'll have to pay for the driver. I think the second thing is that we will have some pent up demand, if you will. You mentioned furniture, you mentioned some other durable goods. I think those run in some cycles, and when everybody was at home and cooped up and sheltering in place, we were buying things for the home, right? We looked around, and we were like, oh, I need new table and chairs. Oh, I need new flooring. Oh, I need new stuff, right? And we've gone through that cycle once, and I think if from a health perspective, if COVID is truly behind us and people get back out, I think that'll create some additional demand as well. And I would look for something in the August, September timeframe, more like that traditional back to school, kind of fall peak that we've seen in years past.
Yeah. No, that's great insight, Dave. Well, we really appreciate you coming on here. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Tanner and I are going to close up here, but thank you again for this. And enjoy a little bit of Ohio football.
I'm going to enjoy Ohio football. Obviously, you can probably assume whom I'm rooting for. For every college football fan, it's probably the greatest time of the year because there's a lot of football on every day. So I hope everybody's enjoying that. Thank you guys for having me, and I'm sure I'll see you in Chattanooga the next time. And Happy New Year.
Thank you, Dave. You as well. Take care.
All right, thanks, guys.
It'd be very interesting to see where we end up. I think I've heard that a few times. I think there's a lot of logistics executives who are expecting some sort of shock in the back half of 2023. Some are saying that it's going to shock and things are going to rise. Some are saying it's shock and it's going to go down more. But I think that the general consensus, there's going to be some sort of shock to the freight market. as far as what that's going to be, hard to tell.
I think eventually, like you said, some people are saying Q2, Q3, Q4. I don't really think anybody knows. I just think the best thing we can do is constantly watch the data. If you don't have sonar, reach out to Luke, right? Watch the charts, watch the data. That's really the only way you're going to figure out when it's going to possibly occur is by looking at the data.
That's right. It's fun to guess, but sonar will eventually tell when it happens and by how much. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. We will see you next Wednesday. In the meantime, have a fantastic New Year's and be safe out there, especially in the cold weather. Have a good day.